Hark, when the night is falling, hear the pipes are calling, loudly and proudly calling down through the glen. There where the hills are sleeping, now feel the blood a-leaping, high as the spirits of the old Highland men. Towering in gallant fame, Scotland my mountain hame, high may your proud standards gloriously wave. Land of my high endeavor, land of the shining rivers, land of my heart forever, Scotland the brave. High in the misty highlands, out by the Fairport Islands, brave are the hearts that beat beneath Scottish skies. Wild are the winds that meet you, staunch are the friends that greet you, kind as the love that shines from fair maidens' eyes. Oh, in Scotland fame, Scotland my mountain hame, long may your standards gloriously wave. Land of my high endeavor, land of the shining rivers, land of my heart forever, Scotland the brave. Far off in sunlit places, sad are the Scottish faces, yearning to feel the kiss of sweet Scottish rain. Where tropics' skies are gleaming, love sets the heart a-dreaming, longing and dreaming for the homeland again. Towering in gallant fame, Scotland my mountain hame, long may your proud standards gloriously wave. Land of my high endeavor, land of the shining rivers, land of my heart forever, Scotland the brave. When the night is falling, hear the pipes are calling, loudly and proudly calling down through the glen. There where the hills are sleeping, now feel the blood a-leaping, high as the spirits of the old Highland men. Towering in gallant fame, Scotland my mountain hame, long may your proud standards gloriously wave. Isn't that a great song? Great patriotic song about our standards gloriously waving. But oh my goodness, how are the mighty fallen? And there's more about that in a wee minute when I've introduced this program, which is the LINDSAY TARTAN Politics Show, coming from here in Whithorn, Galloway, Southwest Scotland, the headquarters of the Scottish Heritage Party, which is proudly waving the glorious standards of the old Scotland. Yes, we're living in the 21st century, but we have a mighty, powerful heritage, spiritual and political and every other way cultural, to be so proud of, even though it's been sadly distorted and destroyed over the last few years of the SNP government, even more particularly since 2014, when a certain married couple came to the fore. And since then, we all wondered when all the secrets would come out. We all knew there were secrets. We all knew there was layer upon layer of secrecy. Hence the title of this program, which is about the SNP onion. Like an onion that you peel layer upon layer upon layer of it. Just like that. the scandals and the potential scandals and all these dark secrets of the SNP are coming out layer upon layer upon layer. And like an onion, when you peel an onion, as you all know, I'm sure, it makes you cry, or it can do. Well, especially some people will be crying. So welcome to this week's Lindsay Tartan Politics Show. So what's new? Well, let's look at the layers. Last week we had Humza Yousaf's bed of nails, very uncomfortable for the poor man. This week, he's been called a rabbit caught in the car headlights at night. You know how they are? You know, the poor things, well, they stand there, you know, like zombies and just staring into these headlights, mesmerized and really scared. And that's a bit what he's been looking like lately, or the pictures I've seen of him and the things I've seen about him. So it's a rabbit caught in the headlights in charge of a zombie government, as another newspaper headline is that we'll look at later. And does he still have that bed of nails? Well, this week we're looking upon the layer upon layer upon layer of secrecy to start with. So what have we got? First of all, it seems hundreds of years ago, but it's not actually that long, Nicola Sturgeon resigned as First Minister. And there's much more to it than she put out in her very persuasive resignation speech at that time. Soon afterwards, her deputy, her long-standing deputy, John Swinney, resigned, saying, well, you know, I've been meaning to do it for ages, but she wouldn't let me resign. Very convincing. And of course, in the middle of this three-cornered fight for the leadership, for the new First Minister, between Kate Forbes, who I think was the favourite of not the SNP members maybe, but the Scottish voters particularly, all Scottish voters, and even a big favourite among the dwindling number of SNP members. And then there was Ash Regan, bless her heart, and then there was the continuity candidate, of course, Humza Yousaf, the darling of the establishment. Or is he? Or was he just a fall guy? Because he must be so embarrassed because he didn't know, or says he didn't know, about layer upon layer upon layer of secrets being exposed. For example, how this famous firm of accountants had actually resigned after 10 years of looking after the SNP finances. They'd actually resigned 6 months before. And he didn't know, he wasn't told. Well, if that's true, that's even worse, that he wasn't told and the members weren't told, the party members. And of course, the actual dwindling number of party members, that was never told. And because of that, the press secretary or publicity secretary resigned. And who was held responsible, probably, for keeping those membership figures secret? Well, yes, it could have been Peter Morrell, who was the next one to be arrested and then released without charge. And yes, we all know, as Humza Yousaf repeatedly says, of all of these ones who keep being arrested and then released without charge, that they are innocent until proven guilty. That is indeed true in the law of these islands. That is true. Habeas Corpus Act and all that, innocent till proven guilty. Unlike in the EU where they have corpus juris where you're guilty and have to prove your innocence. But still, nevertheless, it is very common, as we found out in football last week, with a certain fourth referee who apparently shoved Andy Robertson out of the way and didn't belt him in the face with an elbow. This gentleman, who has now been reinstated honourably after apologies exchanged and all that, he was suspended from his job as fourth referee pending investigation. So why, you may ask, have Peter Morrell, is that how you say it? Yeah. Colin Beattie, of whom more anon, and Nicola Sturgeon herself. Why have they not been suspended from the party with all this going on? So, we had Lair number 1, Sturgeon resigns. Sturgeon resigns. Lair number 2, John Swinney resigns. Lair number 3, Peter Morrell was arrested, chief executive of the party, remember. And remember, I think I'm right in saying, that Alex Salmond, the predecessor as First Minister, in 2014 warned Nicola that to have a couple, a husband and wife team in charge in these high positions, both together, was not a very good idea. Well, it's proved not to be. Oh, and who else is behind bars? And you'll see a photographic proof of this later on when we do the newspaper headlines. The battle bus has been arrested, which is, of course, as you all know, a minibus, a motorhome, I should say, costing £100,000 and never apparently having been used. Here we see it. Coming up later in the papers, our little section on the papers. The battle bus has been we have photographic proof that it is behind bars. In a police compound, surrounded by police cars. Poor old battle bus, so much for it. And then, of course, the 71-year-old poor soul, MSP for an area just outside Edinburgh, called Colin Beattie, was arrested last Tuesday. It's 2 days ago, unreleased without charge. But this is serious because he is the SNP party treasurer. And he definitely admitted just before his arrest to the NEC, that's the National Executive Committee of the SNP, that, quote, the party is struggling to balance its books and the reason given, as you might well see, is a fall in membership figures and donors, of course. So I would suggest, would it not, in this particular layer of the onion, that there might be a feeling of mistrust or at least cautious skepticism among SNP members. So, of course, there was, however, a video recently leaked from a little while ago where Nicola Sturgeon said, look, the SNP finances are absolutely healthy, in perfect shape, and don't dare say anything else. Usual call to secrecy. Yes. Now, okay, we've noticed, all of us, I mean, you have to be a really idiot not to notice why hasn't Nicola Sturgeon been arrested yet? And then probably released without charge pending investigations. Well, you may well wonder, how long will it be? There it is in the Sun newspaper. Will Nick be nicked next? Bit more of that later. Though, the interesting thing about her is after mouthing off for years and years and years since 2014, extremely good communicator, as Alex Sturgeon said about her. Suddenly, she's not there. I called him Alex Sturgeon. They're a fishy pair, let's face it. Come on. I know I made a mistake, but I mean, it's easy, isn't it? You know, salmon and sturgeon, what a pair. Well, very fishy. They're caught in the net, as Dave says there, who's on the controls and is also the Scottish coordinator of the Heritage Party. Thank you, Dave. Okay, and he does his own programme, which I'm advertising now this week in Scotland, which will be on, I think, tomorrow morning, Friday morning show. Anyway, yes, it's gone terribly quiet and Holyrood, hasn't it? Because all week she hasn't been in, although apparently she voted online for some particular, I can't remember what it was about, but she did vote. But it's lovely and quiet, isn't it? No more, no more, the poison dwarf or whatever you want to call it. That was some of her nicknames. Sweet, isn't it? So she's keeping very quiet. Well, there you are. Unfortunately for poor old Humsa Yusuf, it does look as if the prediction by Kate Forbes, I almost call it a prophecy, was true. That continuity doesn't cut it. For two reasons I'm saying that. First of all, the poor soul, Hamza Yusuf, keeps being upstaged by various dramatic events as the layers of the onion are peeled off. And this week, yes, it was the arrest of, as I've said already, the 71-year-old Colin Beattie, the party treasurer, who has since resigned, just recently, very, very recently. Just a few hours ago, really, has resigned. Now, this drama on Tuesday was the very day, well, a few hours later anyway, that poor old Hamza Yusuf was going to put on his great 3-year plan for the future government of Scotland and the future of Scotland in general. Well, it kind of got upstaged, didn't it, by all this going on. You can't help feeling a wee bit sorry for him. But sometimes, so this is more proof, and as you'll see later when we look at the papers, he is actually trying to distance himself now. He's not quite so much of a continuity character as he was. He's trying to distance himself from some of the more controversial Sturgeonisms. However, we've still got the ongoing spectre, one of the nails on the bed of nails mentioned last week. Yes, you got it. The Gender Recognition Bill, passed by a majority of 39 in Holyrood, Scottish Parliament in December, just in time for Christmas. Yes, the Gender Recognition Bill, however, was very quickly after that blocked by Alistair Jack, our own MP from Dumfries and Galloway, and also the Scottish Secretary of State for Scotland, using Section 35 of the Scotland Act 1998, which was the act which brought about Scottish government, Scottish Parliament. And this is used to veto controversial laws or acts or whatever, which might threaten the unity or the constitution of the UK. And the question really that came out of that was not whether the Scottish Parliament actually exceeded their powers in passing that act, but the implications it would have for the rest of the UK. So in some parts, you'd have gender recognition. In other parts of the UK, the other 3 parts, you wouldn't have. And also, it's conflict with the Equality Act 2010, very famous act, which the Scottish government are not allowed to change. That was a UK act. So what's going to happen is at great cost financially and probably also among voters, the SNP, the Scottish government, I should say, are challenging the legality of Section 35, which they call an irrational move by the UK government and Alistair Jack. They call it irrational. Now, they're not actually saying, apparently, that Alistair Jack is off his head, or has serious mental problems. That's actually not what this means. This is a legal term, irrational, meaning that it's a sort of disproportionate response and going against the democratic vote of the Scottish government. Ah, yes, but that's the Scottish government. But what about the Scottish people? Because opinion polls would suggest repeatedly that the majority of the Scottish people are not at all happy with this. Even some transgender people aren't all happy with it. And certainly there have been major counter-demonstrations, as I think, by various groups supporting the rights of women and children and safe spaces and all these things. And of course, the famous case of J.K. Rowling, who's really stuck her neck out about this. So what's going to happen? I'll tell you what's going to happen. There is going to be a judicial review now of this whole situation. And it's going to be held in the Court of Session, which is the Scottish highest legal court in Edinburgh. And, and what's going to happen then is that whoever loses the case may take it to the inner court of the Court of Session, which is even higher, or again, as has happened frequently with the Scottish Government, or quite often, it could end up again at the Supreme Court. You can only imagine the thousands and thousands of pounds all this is going to cost, and the amount of time it's going to cost. Honestly, not a wise move probably at this time, one would have thought. Anyway, just a couple of other things. Let's have a look at the papers. I found some lovely headlines on yesterday's papers, which David has got up there. First of all, from the Independent, the Eye. So much for the continuity candidate. Yusuf targets break with Sturgeon era after arrest. Who blames him? Including this one I don't really, to be truthful, fully understand, but this bottle refund, or however you call it. So he's not too happy. He's held up a couple of things and he's trying to change the emphasis of the party. I love these two here. Beautiful headlines. The Sun, yesterday's newspaper, the Scottish Sun. Will Nick be nicked next? Well, it's very straightforward, isn't it? Yeah. And then, of course, we have the behind bars one on the opposite page, which we looked at already. This is a famous or infamous Scottish battle bus, which is seen, fancy imprisoning a battle bus. It's good fun, isn't it? Behind bars there. Wonderful stuff. And then there's talking about the zombie government. How long will it stagger on? You know, these are just a few of the superb headlines from yesterday. How long, this is from the Scottish Daily Mail, how long can Humza's zombie government stagger on? Lovely, isn't it? What with that and the rabbit in the headlights. It's just gorgeous. So they're all in the same boat, really. You know, with these onion layers and these disasters and ongoing problems. When I say in the same boat, just to finish off on a slightly lighter note, or is it? The dreaded Calmac Ferries saga staggers on. Aging boats constantly breaking down. Highlanders and islanders in the inner and the outer Hebrides feeling the pressure of being cut off, never knowing when the ferry's going to turn up or if it is. To add to that, we've got the poor souls working in Ferguson's shipyard on these two very, 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 very overdue and very, 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 very overpriced ferries that may never materialise. They're feeling the pressure because they don't like being used as a political football, apparently. Poor things. Maybe that's why the work is taking so long. Okay, so we've also found out that there's another company called Pentland Ferries, which seems a lot more efficient, which runs boats from Scrabster to Orkney, Kirkwall Orkney and other things. The Orkney, the ferry boats anyway. And good old Calmac has borrowed a relief ferry from them. And it's actually a catamaran, quite a modern catamaran, built in 2019. It seems quite safe. And they've swapped it with another boat or something. Anyway, so at least they've got a rescue ship, you know, like Stingray or International Rescue or whatever, which is coming to rescue the poor Highlanders and Islanders stranded. And meanwhile, on the other side of Scotland, in the North Sea, there are sinister forces at work. Not the SNP this time, but apparently Russian spy trawlers. It's jolly exciting. And there's a picture of one in one of the papers which has got a very tough-looking characters with dark glasses and sort of dressed in camouflage gear, standing about this trawler. The story goes, although you never know what to believe, concerning Russia-Ukraine war at the moment, and all the happenings in Russia. But the story goes that these trawlers are actually spy trawlers, which are hovering around the North Sea, inspecting oil pipelines and gas things and whatever else is out there, spying on our infrastructure. We'll see. So, yes, what an exciting week. This is the Lindsay Tartan politics show. Please stand in the gap, because there's a complete power vacuum coming very shortly in Scotland. So be smart, look ahead, and join the Scottish Heritage Party. Let's get Scotland back to where it should be, where she should be, a shining light to the nations, a spiritual leader of the nations, a cultural force for power, a great, as well as that, actually, great military history Scotland has. You know, so let's just stand together for the real Scotland, not this sort of woke layer upon layer of scandal and secrecy, SNP version of Scotland. It doesn't work. And now, just to finish with, I'm going to sing you a song. It's a real tearjerker. It's about the old Scotland they want to see back. It's called The Rowan Tree. Oh, rowan tree, thou tie be deity be, and twine thou art with many ties, O him and infancy. Thy leaves were the first of spring, thy flowers the summer's pride. There was nae sick a bonny tree in all the countryside. Oh, rowan tree. How fair wert thou in summertime, with all thy clusters white. How rich and gay thy autumn dress, with berries red and bright. On thy fair stem were which no near I see, but there engraven on my hand, forgot they ne'er can be. Oh, rowan tree, we sat and thy spreading shade, the bairnies round thee ran. They drew thy bonny berries red, and necklaces they strang. My mother, oh, I see her still, she smiled our sport to see. We little Jeannie on her lap, and Jamie by her knee. Oh, rowan tree, oh, rowan tree. Lovely verse, this last verse. Oh, there arose my feathers spread in holy evening calm. How sweet was then my mother's voice in the martyr's psalm. thoughts around thee turn, O him and infancy, or unto. See, that does make you cry. It's not the onion this time. It's the thoughts of the real Scotland, the families, the beauties of nature, the old houses, the children, and the love of God, you know, and the prayers. Because we've got that history as well, especially coming from the time of John Knox, who exposed the evils of what was going on then with the royal family of Scotland and Mary Queen of Scots and the treachery that was going on. So we need to believe more and more and more is going to come out right now. And we need to be ready to stand in there and stand for the real Scotland with the Scottish Heritage Party. Thank you for being with me for the Lindsay Tartan Politics Show. See you next week. Bye for now. Scots behave.